Good morning and welcome to the Morning Scoop for Tuesday, August 24th. This is your daily Buckeye fix. I'm Tom Orr. The Minnesota game is in 9 days. Yes, single digits. The Michigan game, 95 days. The game in 95 days. And, being down to single digits in the countdown to the Minnesota game means we are getting into a lot of the last times before the start of the season as well. Monday was the last time anyone outside of the program will likely get a chance to see the Buckeyes practicing. Ryan Day invited back former players to watch practice, and Buckeye Scoop's Kirk Barton was one of them who took Coach Day up on that offer. Kirk joins me this morning to share what he learned inside that practice. Monday, Kirk marked the switch from fall camp to game prep. They had beat Minnesota on the video board at the indoor facility, at the indoor field. All the players are out of the hotel now. So, during practice, what's the difference between a fall camp practice and now you've switched into game week practice?
The biggest difference, honestly, is there's a lot of scout teamwork. So you see guys walking off the field, like you guys are there for media today. You see guys that are in these funky colored jerseys, and they're in Minnesota Gopher jerseys. So that's the big difference. There's a lot of show work, which is the scout team or the show team, whatever you want to call it, where they run plays off of cards. And Garrett Wilson is unbelievable at organizing a scout team and making sure that guys give the correct look as to what they project Minnesota to run, as opposed to in training camp where you're going against Ohio State's defense and they're running their defense and you're running Ohio State's offense. Now it's more, okay, this is what we think Minnesota's going to do. This is what they've done in the past. Or sometimes it gets funky. Hey, they got a new defensive coordinator that used to be at Miami of Ohio or whatever, and this is what they ran there. So this is what we're projecting. I mean, sometimes it's pretty much a reach. Like 2012, we never could predict what teams were going to run against Urban Meyer's offense just because it was so new to the Big Ten. So we were just guessing, and we were wrong every single week. So it was kind of hilarious. But the scout work is a big difference between training camp and the regular season.
So on Monday, you did get to watch practice, and I'm sure the first thing you were looking for as an old offensive lineman and old offensive line coach was the offensive line. So let's start there. When we talked today after practice, he was not totally ready to commit to playing with the, Nick Petit-Frere, Thayer, Munford, Harry Miller, Paris Johnson, DeJuan Jones line that we've been talking about for weeks now. What did you see along the line in practice, and what do you think they're actually going to do against Minnesota? Do you have a good sense for what you think they're going to do against Minnesota now?
Yeah, I think that's the line. I mean, I think it's going to be DeJuan at right tackle all the way to Nick at left tackle. I think Thayer was back at practice. He looked good back at left guard. You get Harry at center. And you get PJ at right guard, Paris Johnson. So, you got those five together. I think you could see potentially Matt Jones at left guard as well. I think he's clearly the sixth man, so to speak. If somebody went down, like knock on wood, and got hurt, I think he'd be the first guy off the bench. And then I think you'd have kind of a musical chair, so to speak. If something happened, God forbid something happened to Nick Petit-Frere, put Thayer back at left tackle, put Matt Jones at left guard. Something happens to Harry, put Matt Jones at center. Something happens to PJ, put Matt Jones at right guard. Something happens to DeJuan, you put Nick Petit at right tackle, put Thayer at left tackle, and then you put Matt in at left guard. So I think he's clearly the sixth man. I think Luke Munford is really looking good at center as well behind Harry. So I think that's still going to be a little bit of a battle. I think Harry's won the battle, but I think Luke's going to get some significant playing time this year as well.
Both sides of the ball have lines that are expected, I think, to be among the best in the nation. Offensive line, we just went through it, and you've got a couple potential All-Americans on that line. Defensive line, there are a bunch of potential All-Americans on that side of the ball as well. When they were going good on good, they did some, working against the scout team, but they said they did some good on good stuff as well. How did both sides look? Was one side getting the better of the other when they were going ones on ones?
I thought that it was pretty balanced. I hate saying that because people are like, of course you're going to say something's balanced, but we hit him on some deep shots, but then we gave him some sacks. So it was kind of like, give and take a little bit. JT had a couple of sacks in the scrimmage situations. Garrett Wilson looked phenomenal. I mean, he is an explosive dude. I think he's the best player on the team right now. Our corners are kind of in a hockey line change where it's like, the one set of with the ones you'll see two corners, and then the next set with the ones you'll see different corners. And Sevyn was out there. I think they're still limiting his reps just because he's been dinged up and missed a lot of camp. They got to make sure that he's in condition. It doesn't pull a muscle. And the safeties seem pretty consistent. It seemed pretty much like it was Craig Young and Josh Proctor with the ones. And there's a mix of guys at the other corners, and there's a mix of guys at the bullet. So it's, I think we're going to see a lot of guys play, in 10 days or whatever it is, when we tee up against Minnesota.
We dropped an episode of the Buckeye Weekly podcast that was Tony Gerderman and I, and you kind of walked up partway through, and then it was a 3-man show, which was awesome. Got to get a little insight from you. And, we talked a bunch about the safeties on that show because we had just talked to Matt Barnes and the safeties right before that. But I mean, there are serious questions at corner still. I mean, is this when you're saying they're rotating guys through and doing line changes? I mean, Sevyn Banks was back out there on Monday. That is good news because he'd been sitting some with a minor injury. Want to get a sense for how he looked first of all, but then also in general, like, is that they've got 4 guys they really like and that's why they're playing 4 guys, or is it like when you have 4 starting corners, you have no starting corners? Like, I mean, what's your read on that? Is 4 rotating lines and kind of doing line changes with the ones at corner? Is that good news or is that bad news?
I think it's good news because I think you need to have competition, and also you need to build some depth. A lot of these guys haven't played, or they haven't played significant time, so you have to, or they're coming off injury, so you need to get those guys out there. I think early in the season, it's smart to limit the reps so that, you mitigate the hamstrings and the strains that could come from maybe too much mileage early in the year, especially when it's hot. And, like the skill guys, I mean, they catch cramps, they have all kinds of issues, early on when it's hot. And so you got to have guys ready, engaged in the game and ready to go. So that's why, it's like our wide receivers. Like if Marvin Harrison's out there at X, I mean, God bless him. That's great. If you got to give Garrett Wilson a blow, or, you put a Mecca in at slot or X is with a jiggle, like there's not really any drop off between any of those 6, which is amazing. And at corner, I think you're still kind of trying to discover who are, if it's not cutting time, who are the 2 guys you're going to have out there, when you're in a 2 cornerback look. So I think you got to get these guys all some reps and grade the game film. And, whoever grades out highest, you got to take note of, okay, his technique's tight, played phenomenal ball, and, maybe we should reevaluate the depth chart because, the games are different for practice. And there's guys that really show out in games and play well. And, it's going to be here soon.
Well, on that episode of Buckeye Weekly that dropped yesterday, as we said, you just kind of walked up to us. And so we did no prep. We hadn't talked at all about, well, what are we going to talk about? So we just said, hey, what did you notice during practice? And the first name he brought up was Garrett Wilson, which kind of surprised me. Not because it's like, oh, wow, Garrett Wilson's good. Wow, I had no idea. But you kind of know, I feel like we kind of know what he is at this point. So what was he doing that jumped out to you even after? I mean, it's not like it was a big surprise to you that Garrett Wilson is good at football. Like, this is a thing that we have talked about before and known for a little while. So what was it that he was showing you? What did he do in practice that was like, even knowing what Garrett Wilson is and, the expectations for Garrett Wilson, that he still impressed you? Like, what did you actually see out of him on Monday?
I just think his usage, his overall volume of targets, because you got to evaluate, Justin Fields is gone, CJ Stroud's here. Certain quarterbacks have different chemistries with different receivers. So something I was kind of monitoring, who's his go-to guy, when everything's, tight and, and play breaks down, who's he looking for? And plus, he's an amazing deep ball threat. He's a blazer. He's not quite Tyreek Hill, but a lot of the stuff that he was doing in different formations, different looks, they clear it out for him. He gets open on some intermediate routes, and then once he gets the ball in his hands, I mean, he is dynamic. So he's a guy that you don't always have to make it the most difficult route. Like a go route versus a 60-yard bomb. Like, just get him the ball in space and let him run, and then he's a major problem for the defense. And he's a competitive dude, man. He really practices hard.
Yeah, I mean, you go back to the beginning of the Penn State game last year, and I think it was on the first drive that just gave it to him on a little end around, and he took it 60-something yards. He can do that with his legs. He doesn't need to just do it with the ball in the air. You mentioned CJ Stroud there. He was named the starter over the weekend, so not that there was a whole heck of a lot of drama there, but now there's no drama. We know who the starter is going to be. It's going to be CJ Stroud. But from talking to you after practice, it sounds like you're pretty sure you know who the backup will be as well. That's not something that Ryan Day has announced yet. That's not something that they've made any kind of a public pronouncement about the way they did with Stroud. But what did you see today? Who do you think is the number 2 behind CJ Stroud when the Minnesota game kicks off?
Yeah, it's Colin McCord. I mean, he took every rep with the 2s today. It's pretty cut and dry. I think he's going to be he's the guy. He's he's developing. He was a little up and down today, but he's a true freshman. So I mean, Those true freshmen are only playing scout team. They're not, projected for large roles, but this kid's special. He's a very good player. Some people think he might have been overshadowed by Quinn Ewers, but he's a 5-star talent from Pennsylvania, and I'm sure he's supremely motivated and locked in. And I think he's going to be a great player, here or elsewhere, wherever he ends up, because he's a special dude. It's just hard when you have a kid who has the exact same eligibility as you, with CJ Stroud being a redshirt freshman, him being a true freshman. They both play this year, then there's only one quarterback. So it's going to be one of those fascinating things that we're going to be locked into over the next few years, is how does this quarterback room shake out?
Well, as we said at the start of the show, 9 days left till the ball goes in the air in Minnesota and the season is officially underway. Based on what you saw today, or based on what you're hearing, what's the thing that needs to get fixed, needs to be better, needs to be improved between now and Minnesota? I think there's certain areas where it feels like Ryan Day and the coaching staff is pretty happy with everything. What's an area that you think, either it's a positional battle that needs to be settled, or just they need to figure out what they want to do with this position? What's one thing that needs to be, settled or improved before the season starts?
I think just locking down the rotation at cornerback is going to be huge, figuring out how much Sevyn Banks can go, and just figuring out the linebackers, because you said Ryan Day mentioned that, if there's a guy who's going to play, it's going to be Travis Mitchell. It's got 0 career starts. And, you got to wonder about, Tommy Eichenberg, Cody Simon, some of these guys that are going to have to be major contributors versus the team's going to run the ball a lot. So, and, how aggressive are we at stopping the run? Do we run different defensive formations? Do we run blitz? How are we going to stop the run against Minnesota? Because that's going to be their bell cow, because their receivers don't scare anybody. And, we're going to have to really get after this big, massive offensive line they have. And I think our defensive front can handle it. But, if you take some chances, send some run blitzes, get them into 2nd and 13, 2nd and 14, really put them behind the count as it gets to 2nd and 3rd down, it's a huge benefit to our defensive linemen and our pass rush.
Well, we are under 10 days to go to the start of the season. We are under 1 week to go till the world premiere of the documentary Fight for Football, to be saving the 2020 season. Kirk and I will be there. So will Nevada and Bill and Tony and Dominique and who else? There's a lot of people. There's a lot of people who are going to be there at that world premiere next Monday. It is at the Lennox Theater. We made those tickets available to Buckeye Scoop members, and so many of them responded that we have already filled up the one size of theater at the Lennox. We're pushing it to a bigger theater now at the Lennox, and now we're opening it up that anyone can sign up to get tickets to that. I will throw the link to that in the post for this podcast on the front page of Buckeye Scoop. So that'll be there on Tuesday morning. You can click there to get tickets, get to see the documentary, have a live Q&A with all sorts of Buckeye Scoop staffers. We're having a little post event party in the Short North. Kirk has a place, so it is going to be a fantastic night. I cannot wait. We are less than a week away. If you have not gotten tickets yet, I would strongly recommend you get tickets, because eventually we are going to run out of space, even in the bigger theater. So sign up today, get your tickets, reserve your spot, and join us for a fantastic night. And finally, do make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel as well. If you're watching this on YouTube, just click on the little Buckeye Scoop circular logo on the right-hand side of the screen towards the end of the video. We are making it as easy as possible. Click on that, and you get notified every time we post a new podcast, every time we post a new interview with players and coaches, camp videos, high school highlights, recruit videos, interviews, all that great stuff. It's all free. YouTube.com/Buckeye Scoop. Subscribe, and you'll never miss a thing. That'll do it for today. Thank you guys all for joining us. Have a great day. We'll talk to you tomorrow.